So it has finally happened. Charmed is back, and they're coming back now with the third season. I just got done watching it, the first episode of the third season, not the whole third season, obviously. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Turnout. I am your host Aloy, and if you're just as excited about the third season of Charmed coming back, go ahead and hit that like button, and don't forget to hit subscribe as well. Really helps us out. So now the first episode of the third season is out. I actually just got done watching it. I watched it and made meticulous notes and everything, so we have a lot to talk about in this video. But first, I just want to go ahead and just say generally, I really enjoyed this episode, and I'm wondering if it is A, because the episode was actually just really, really good, or B, because I missed the show. I'm trying to figure it out. I don't know if it's like, it's been so long, so now I love it, and I need to watch this, and I'm enjoying it more because I haven't been watching it for weeks and weeks and weeks. I don't know, I think that it probably is just really good. And like with previous episodes, they end up splitting the team up into a bunch of different kind of duos. Maggie and Mel get put together. Macy gets put together, Macy and Harry. And Jordan and Abigail end up getting paired off. So we ended up with basically three different storylines, although Jimmy is kind of also in there a little bit. And we'll talk about that and the possible implications of that in a second. But the very first thing that we have happen in the episode is it starts off with a video of Julian making like a public plea of like, I've lost my girlfriend, Macy, and I miss her, and don't worry, I'll find you. And it's like, ooh. I was like, yeah. Well, I mean, and it made sense, right? I was like, yeah, of course, he's got money, and they were romantic, and they were seen in public together, so it's not as if it's this, like, far out thing, like, people know that they were together because he's a billionaire. I'm sure he's got TMZ and all the other paparazzi just, on his back. So it was interesting that he used that method. I wish that played a part in any other part of the episode, but it was a good opening. I did enjoy it. The thing that happened after that is they were all like, okay, well then how do we solve this issue? And they come up with the idea of creating a thing called the Clarion potion. And they say, okay, cool. Well, then we're going to get all of the materials together to make this potion. What this potion is that you basically implant an idea in this potion. The person, I think, drinks it or injects it. I'm pretty sure it's inject because they had a needle, but they weren't really clear on how it had to be administered. They believe this idea, and then anybody that they come in contact with also then believes this idea. And they say it was banned by the council.
Let me see. That potion was banned.
By the elders. When have we ever played by their rules?
It's like, okay, cool. I mean, I dig the rebelliousness, but also they state that it could have potentially really dangerous implications if they were to use this stuff. But honestly, that sounds like a really good idea, because you would want the idea, and the whole idea was for them to say magic is not real, and then inject Julian with that, and then everybody that Julian interacts with at that point wouldn't believe that magic is real anymore. And honestly, it sounds like a really good solution to me. and Harry seemed like he was against it, which means that it was either going to be like amazingly good or it was going to go horribly bad. And just to kind of complete this whole thing, then they find out that they need what is called Siren Tongue, and Siren's Tongue is only going to be found at Ragnar Row, which is, essentially the magical black market. And I was like, okay. That's pretty cool. We're gonna have some Harry Potter action going. But then it's weird, right? Because it's the sort of thing that kind of belies the fact that we were filming and recording this in a pandemic, because they go to this black market, which you would believe would be kind of bustling with people trying to sell things here and there. And, there's only one dude that they can see there. Although, like, they make the statement of like, but everybody can see us. Ooh. And I'm like, I mean, okay. I mean, you have to make concessions somewhere, and that's where I will give it to them. But they're looking to get Siren's Tongue, and I really dig that, because it makes sense a lot as well that a siren would have the ability and would be an essential component to this potion that they're making. It makes a lot of sense. But then the guy at the market kind of tries to, screw them over and tries to get away. They end up tracking him down and they end up getting the siren's tongue. And then they decided, well, now that we've gone through all the trouble to get this potion, I don't think that we're going to use it. And that's because they find out from Jimmy, and I'll come back around to this. They find out from Jimmy, though, that, cool, well, we know now why Julian is doing all of this, and it's because of his sister. All right, so that's where we're at right there. So let's backtrack a little bit. Let's go to Mel and Maggie. So Mel and Maggie are trying to get information out of Jimmy, and Jimmy's like, no. And they're like, well, we're going to force you to do it. We're going to threaten you and we're going to fight you. And he's like, okay, you're not scary. So, I mean, I don't know, that's what I got from it, at least. Then Mel seems to be kind of getting a little bit aggravated. Maggie's like, calm down. So her emotional control makes Mel really happy. And she goes, no, I need you to not be like that. So then it makes her super apathetic.
Who cares? I'll be on the couch.
And then what she ends up doing is filling Mel with hope. And then they decide, oh, well, that's what we need to give to Jimmy. And they go to Jimmy and they say, we could give you a new life and we're on the same side and we need to fight and we need to do all this stuff. And it's just like, okay, cool. Like, that makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense. So, and then he told them about Rosemary, which is Julian's sister, who is sick and who he believed was cured with magic, and that's why he's been going on this crusade with all these magical creatures. All right, so that's up to date with them. And we'll get to Jordan and Abigail in a second, but their storyline actually has nothing to do with the main stuff happening in this episode. It's very much a C plot. So Jimmy decides to help them out. He goes and he grabs Julian. And they bring Julian there, and they decide again that they're not going to use the Clarion potion on him after, they figure out why he is doing what he's doing. So they're like, okay, cool. Well, we're going to prove it to you that your aunt is the one behind it all, and that, you took black amber from us and you think it healed somebody, but it really didn't.
That's not possible. Black amber doesn't heal humans.
I know. If only I could prove it to him.
So Harry and Macy go to Rosemary and they start running a bunch of scientific tests on her to figure out why. And they ended up like his Aunt Vivian, which, by the way, I hate calling her Aunt Viv. It just makes me, I'm like, you're just soiling the Fresh Prince here. Stop it. But she comes in with like a bunch of like soldiers and stuff, so they have to leave. But they got the results right before they did. And they tell Julian, like, hey, yeah, this is what's happening right now, and your aunt is the one behind it all. And that's honestly something that I told you guys last season. I had said that, Julian's kind of crusade and everything, I don't know, it was very understandable under the circumstances, and like, I can't have said that I wouldn't be doing the same thing, probably not in the same way, like, incarcerating, and I probably would try to make friends with the magical world and try and find some supernatural creatures that could help me, find a witch who believes in the cause and can help me and stuff like that, not just outright incarceration and slavery of monsters. That's a whole other thing. So he's going to help them, and that'll be interesting to see what goes on from there. They seem skeptical, but we'll see what happens. So that is essentially the storyline for Harry and the main characters. So let's go ahead and talk about Jordan and Abigail. Okay, Jordan is visited upon by this angry witch again, the same witch ghost that's like, you're running out of time, you got to do what we said to do, you have to balance the scales. And he's like, look, y'all told me 12 episodes ago to balance the scales, but y'all didn't tell me what to do with this. So what the hell? And they're like, well, you have to help the descendant of this type of witch, a witch of this line. And here's your, you have an hourglass. There you go. You have to do it now. So he goes to Abigail, who is apparently kind of just in a depression drinking binge. And she agrees to help him because she has a big witch of, because she has a big book of witches who need help. So they go to this like museum and they steal a painting that's got a witch in it, and then they do the thing. It was honestly not that interesting. As much as I love both Jordan and Abigail, it seemed like it seemed very extra. It seemed like all of it was just, she was acting like she was above it all, and then he was calling her out on it. I did kind of like that. He seemed like he was a pretty cool therapist. But then again, it was just like, she seemed like she was being helpful without asking for anything, and then ended up asking for something at the end. And she revealed that she needs a message to get to her sister. And I'm like, see, I told y'all that they were going to introduce more Kane kids. This one will be half leprechaun. That is my guess. In my other video, I said either half leprechaun or half unicorn or half something, because all of the Kane kids are all half something. That's just how it is, because he gets around. So there were two big things that I feel like had a lot of implications in this episode. Let's talk about the first one, which is the siren's tongue. So if you guys recall, in the first season, they were all about like when the Gorgon was coming and attacking, the Gorgon being a Medusa type character with snakes for hair, could turn people to stone. And they were like, well, we can't just kill her because she's the victim in all of this. So let's try and appeal to her. And then they ended up defeating her with like the power of heart, right? So so the Gorgons and the sirens aren't that different. Sirens are largely women. They're female mythological creatures who sing, and they can lure people to their deaths and and all that stuff. So sirens aren't necessarily that different. So you're just going to go to a store and you are literally purchasing body parts of these other sentient creatures. Like, that's kind of wicked. And I think it would have been different if they had said something like, oh, well, but we're making a note of like this place and we're going to come back and free the sirens and whatnot, or something to that effect. Because it just seems like they're just throwing this idea away. So I'm hoping that in a later episode, they decide to return to Ragnar Row and deal with the people who have essentially a chop shop in the back where they're taking mythological creatures and like slaughtering them for spell components, and like for them to think that like that's better than what Julian and his aunt are doing, which is incarceration and stealing magic stuff. I mean, it's not that different, and it's just as bad, and it's bad, and they should stop it. So stop it. The other thing is that at the end, they said, all right, Jimmy, you can go. And he ends up waking up on a park bench in the UK. And the idea in his brain is, I'm a good man. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And then he talks to a policeman and he goes, you are a good man. Oh, that's so sweet. And I'm like, oh, man, that whole could have potentially dangerous implications. And this is a very dangerous mind virus thing. I mean, I think that Jimmy is going to end up like becoming the prime minister, and everybody's going to think like, well, he's a good man and he can basically do anything he wants to now. I mean, yes, he believes it as well, so he's not going to do anything bad with that. But what if it affects him differently because he's a dark lighter? And what if he can convince everybody else that he's a good man? And like, there's so many different things that can happen here. But what's going to end up happening is that like Jimmy's going to become like a new saint, and everybody's going to think that he's a good man, everybody who sees him. I don't know. I think that their idea of not using it was the right one, because it was a bad idea to unleash this mind virus on anybody. And then they just kind of did it anyway. And the idea that the statement, Jimmy is a good man, isn't one that can have negative consequences, well, then that's just naivete. I mean, to be quite honest. And one last thing, is that in the final scene, I don't know what was up with Maggie's hair. I mean, seriously, everybody was like looking like their normal self, and I don't know if maybe Maggie was just having a bad day or what, but like they did not do her hair, and her hair looked jacked. And I'm not really one to like really remark on like what they look like or anything like that, but it was just strikingly odd that her hair was not done, and it was just like a mop. And then the last scene that we get in the show is Aunt Vivian opening up a Pulp Fiction style briefcase, and it's a blue light, and they're like, this is the thing that's going to mean that we own magic. And then it ends. So what I'm going to say again, because I said it at the beginning, but I really, really liked this episode. I feel like they are tying up a lot of different storylines here. I like the direction that they're going in. I like that they were able to bring Julian on board. I was on board with that from the beginning because I was like, it's not really him. He's being duped. So it definitely makes me very excited for the next episode. The thing with Jimmy, I loved that they did not attempt to rejoin Harry and Jimmy. And I've been promising to make a video on that for a while here, but I may not even need to because they've decided to go away from that. I know a lot of people were like, I can't wait until they rejoin Harry and Jimmy, but the fact that they're letting Jimmy just go and just be a person, that means that they kind of understand the ethics of this whole thing, and they're like, yeah, by combining them into one person, you are essentially destroying one of them, and that's not good. So I understand that the witches might be doing it for a different reason. The charmed ones are doing it because they don't want the bad option to happen, which would be that Jimmy wins and Harry is dead. They don't even want the chance of that happening. But I'm glad that they're not just like, well, screw Jimmy as long as Harry survives. But they're like, no, like he should go off and have his own life and everything. So I dig that a lot. So I don't know. What did you guys think of the first episode of the third season? Let me know about it down in the comments, and let's continue the discussion down there. I want to know your favorite parts. Were you kind of also on board with like, this is a really cool episode, but some of this stuff also seems a little bit extraneous? Let's talk about it more. Also, don't forget to hit like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification. On that bell, don't forget to hit all videos and not just some videos. Otherwise, I've been your host, Aloy. This has been The Turnout. Thanks for showing up. See you in the next one.